questions about some builds of mine. One of the other games I've got a ton of hours into is Warframe, so I figured I would show off a couple of the entertaining interactions beyond the general ones. So, tabbing in here, my prime area without skipping a beat is Trinity. I've, to be blunt, I founded the Energy Vamp build um, eons ago. I remember when Link used to transfer 100% damage out, and we just run her as a duration and watch everybody tank everything. I remember when she was the top DPS in the game because the devs didn't quite factor an interaction between Well Alive and EV. So there's really two main builds for Trinity. The one I've got is minimum duration. Um, it doesn't make her fourth that useful other than a flash. So jumping in here, Well Alive, um, allies near the target gradually regenerate health and are immune to status effects. They also gain additional health when they attack the target. That's awesome. Not how I've got her set up. So for this one, it's 300 health a second and then 3% lifesteal, but it only lasts a second and a half. This we're running as a minimum duration build. It actually goes a hair lower, but the reason for it is energy vampire. So, energy per pulse, it's going to do a 4 pulse AoE at 74.5 points of energy at 145 meter range. So, 75 by 4 is basically 300 points of energy every 1.12 seconds. On top of that, it does some pretty decent damage to the target. The additional thing is with the Vamp Leech I've got on here, additional excess energy is given back as overshields. So I'll get into that here in a second. Really, this entire build is based around just this one ability. It's pumping out so much energy so quickly that your DPS, your tanks, whatever you got in the party can sustain. Link, once again, not useful as minimum duration. Blessing is now a spam cast, so restore health and shields of allies within Trinity's affinity aura. So 100% health and shield restore and up to 75% damage reduction. Now, because it is affinity aura, I do have the school that ups my affinity aura for her when I choose to run that. Now you can flip these and go duration, which you'll lose some strength, but not a ton, and actually make yourself more of a valid support. Give everybody life, less energy, but still decent restores. Link helps reduce your damage. 75% damage reduction is really nice. And then the damage reduction here will actually stay for the correlation of your duration. My plan is when I get the Trin Prime to set her up as a duration tank and set this one up as my EV, but I haven't gotten there yet. So, her mods, I've got her set up with shields because her Vamp Leech excess energy replenishes shields by 150%. She's kind of squishy because she's supposed to be a support. So I do have shields on her and I have health on her because otherwise she's got like 200 and 225. It's not great. Vamp Leech for that. Stretch to help boost the range on EV. Blind Rage is just ability strength. Efficiency doesn't matter at all because, well, you're punching 300 energy out every 1 second. Fleeting Expertise, this one's kind of critical because this reduces your duration. The shorter your duration, the faster you can spam out Energy Vamp and or anything else you need. And then Transient Fortitude, once again, is a damage or duration reduction. So, and then I've just got Intensify because, well, more power strength. Why not? And then Physique, Some of the time I do change that one out to one of the other aura ones. I mean, if I've got a team that I'm worried about, I can run Rejuve or something else, but once again, spam casting out your 4th, it's not so much of an issue. This is what I have set up for a tank, but without respecking my entire Forma set. So that drops my power strength 144, but 207% duration. So at that point, the durations are at 25 seconds. Health and life steal are cut in half from the other build. This is 36 points of energy, so 35, 70, 140 points of energy, but it's split now over 19 seconds. Link is a lot more useful because 75% reductions for 25 seconds, and then the damage reduction is only 3% less, but the duration's up 20 points. So there's some flexibility there depending on what you want to do. Going back in here, Vauban is another one that's singular purpose, is long duration. So the only thing I really use for him is the Vortex. This used to be an age-old thing for running ODDs and other things. You'd get a Vortex and get 3-4 people with rocket launchers, flamethrowers, whatever. You'd suck in the entire platform into the Vortex and just nuke it. So this is a 31 second with a 23 range Vortex. So everybody in the area gets sucked into the singularity. It's a ton of fun for infested missions, for just mass CC. Otherwise, you can do this. You used to be able to attach these. I don't know if it still works, but you used to be able to attach these to people, which was a ton of fun. So you could spec for power strength, and then you'd like stack them on a rhino, put like 40 or 50 of them on a rhino, and watch them go charging through the hall in a giant ball of lightning. This one they changed, and to be fair, I'm not really a fan of the new one. And I don't ever use this because I've got other stuff that does more damage. But the Vortex is fun if you want to just CC infested missions. Since we mentioned him, Rhino is one of your best tanks in the game, if not the best tank in the game. So he's got a charge where he just dashes through everybody, doing a boatload of damage. The upgrade to that is this augment here, so each enemy hit increases Rhino's armor rating by 50% for 10 seconds. As far as I'm aware, this doesn't have a cap. It's possible they figured out that was a bad idea and changed it, but you can scale that basically infinitely, as long as you've got the energy to do it. This gives you basically an armor over top of your shields and everything else, so they gotta break through the iron skin to get in. Mine's set at 5100. I could bring it higher, but I'd sacrifice duration, and honestly, I'm happy with that. Roar is a 53 second, 107% damage increase AoE for everybody nearby, so that is super useful. And then your Rhino Stomp, I don't use it a ton. It is extremely useful for certain missions, primarily for farming Necros, because you can actually stomp the boss and stack slows on him until the point where basically you can just bring the boss down in one go. So, it's a 97.5% movement decrease for enemies at 14 seconds. Plus it does 1700 points of damage. My Rhino is stacked up with armor, health, lessen energy, duration, because that roar is nice sometimes. Blind Rage for the ability strength. Streamline, you pretty much always see that if you can afford it, coupled with Blind Rage to mitigate that neg 55%. Adaptation, when damaged, 10% resistance to that damage type for 20 seconds, stacks up to 90%. So on top of having an overshield that people can't break through, now you've got 90% damage reduction on top of that. And then just additional duration. and a little bit of power strength up here. I do run rifle amp just because it increases that rifle damage for 27% on top of the 107. So, you know, now you're dealing 130% additional weapon damage. That one's fun. Saren is kind of your endgame DPS nuke. So the trick with her is to not scale her damage up too fast. I've got multiple builds for her. Some of them are a little more balanced than others. This is, I want everything to die the second I hit it, and these are a little bit more like, okay, you can live for a few seconds. So actually running her with less strength is a little bit better. For no other reason than because of this one here. So inflict a target with corrosive spores. Spread spores to nearby enemies by destroying the spore directly or killing the host. The longer the spore spreads, the more its damage increases. So the trick is get your range up pretty much as high as you can. I've still got a little bit to go. Base damage 15.4 per second. Damage growth 3 points a second. Status chance not critical. Spread radius 37.6. Decay rate at 6%. So when you have no, well, that's your reset decay. When you have no spores active, they start losing damage pretty fast. But when you have spores up, if you can kill them instead of recasting, because if you recast it, you're taking a 14% damage reduction, and then when you run out, you're taking a 6% reduction. So the trick is to keep them spreading as much as possible, but I've personally got mine upwards of 8-9k, and at that point, unless you're really high missions, there's not much that's going to survive that. So trying to kill it before the spores kill it, because if the spores kill it, it doesn't spread. Molt, basically a decoy, pulls some targets off of you. Toxic Lash, this is useful, gives you an extra damage boost for poison damage for 46 seconds. Plus, while it's active, attacks instantly burst spores while attacking afflicted enemies. For melee, the toxin damage is doubled, which is kind of fun, but that's set up at 81 seconds. That is a nice quick way to just burst spread. Even if you got super low strength, you'll get it scaling really quick. Miasma does a massive damage increase to everybody that's already set up with the spores. So this is a map clear. If you get it out enough or you're getting overwhelmed, you hit that and pretty much everybody just disintegrates. So my mid strength set up at 154, 180 in duration, and 235 on my range. To be fair, these little guys, 25 points of energy, not a super high cost. Skipping to one of my other favorite frames. Go up. Just ended up re-leveling it, so I need to reset that a little bit here. Frost is one of your super useful tanks. It gets a fancy little thing called Snow Globe. Mine just came down by like 5k on this, so it makes a giant indestructible snow globe. Normally mine's set at about 22,000 hit points per snow globe. You can recast them up to 1,000,000 points if memory serves. So enemies can't shoot in, you can shoot out. So useful to put over cryopods for defense missions, anything that you want to make sure it survives. That's the frame you're looking for. Its fourth is an AoE, freezes everybody solid, does some damage, does massive armor reduction, things like that. Get a giant ice wave. That can be used for clearing. Freeze, the only thing you really use it for after you start getting it leveled is busting snow globes if you put them in the wrong place. that's really about it. So for the snow globe, it scales off of ability, strength, and armor. So a lot like Rhino, you want ability, strength, and armor. And the higher those are, the higher Rhino's iron skin goes, and the higher the snow globes go. Then, we'll save the best for last. Nova is one of my entertaining DPSs. So, first one you get, she's an antimatter, which is just fun scientifically to be blowing things apart with antimatter. So, you get 5 particles. Each active particle that you have circling in gives you 5% damage reduction, stacking up to 90%. If you scale this towards, I want to say it's duration, you get more particles. My particles are doing 343, so basically mini heat-seeking things. They find something, they discharge and go after them. Antimatter drop. This is a slow-moving, high burst. You can steer it around. Does base of 458 points, but damage absorption is 8%. That counts for friendly fire. So there was a time where we used to just run these suckers at super slow speed around, and everybody was shelling flamethrowers, rockets, and everything else, and you were doing, 150,000 point bursts with it. It's a little less practical now because there's a lot of people that, a lot of the new weapons just do so much damage. Honestly, it's not as useful as it used to be. This is super useful. This is generally a short range teleport. So range of 72 feet. I run Nova primarily when we're farming Necros because it's quicker to use this to get out of the giant pit than it is to take the elevators. Your fourth one, Molecular Prime. You prime everybody in the area with antimatter. When one detonates, they all detonate. So the ability strength Nova does 75% slow with my current setup, 1800 points of damage. There is a build for Nova, which is a speed build. You take it from negative strength, and instead of the slow being where mine's at 75%, you basically get a negative speed boost. So you accelerate all the enemies on the other side. If you couple that with range and a decent duration, it's meant for speed clearing waves where you're doing defense missions or other things, because you can charge a whole area, and pretty soon, I mean, they're almost double speed. I don't have the mods. One of these days I will make a secondary build for it, but I haven't done so yet, just because, to be fair, this Nova's been set up this way for a really long time before we kind of discovered the negative strength. Because we keep talking about the Necro. Necro is extremely useful for loot resources. Desecrate forces fallen enemies around you to drop additional loot. Now you'll see mine is set to 0 drain and 0 energy per enemy. There is a default, I want to say with my build it goes to minimum of like 5 points of energy per conversion. You want this guy set up for range. And then the loot chance is as high as it goes at 54%. So you have a 54% chance of getting additional secondary loot. That includes your orbs and everything else. My Necro is set up with this lovely Despoil mod. It's a Desecrate Augment. No longer consumes energy, but consumes 10 health per corpse instead. Well, because of my efficiency, it's down to 2.5 points. So I have high efficiency, high range, and no strength and no duration, because neither of those matter. So in addition, I did put health on him just because, and then adaptation in case I need it. This one set up for overextended your primary range mod plus stretch. So I've got 45% range there, 90% there, And then equilibrium, just make sure that I don't ever have an issue, because every once in a while I'll get interrupted and run out of energy. So having the additional health pickups give me energy, and energy giving me health is useful, especially when you've got, 150 points worth of energy. So that's a good frame. The boss is not that hard. I'll be doing a tutorial on bosses at some point, probably in the near future, to how to get some of these, because there's some lovely tricks for that. Skipping up, we covered... I don't have as many frames as I used to, but I've been weeding through my collection. Chroma. Chroma is hard to get until way later in the game. But if you feel like messing around and having a good time, this ability right here, unfortunately, even with 75% efficiency, it's 100 points a pop. So, I've got my duration as high as I can get it with the mods that I have at 52 seconds. At least for this build. I have a different build that's a little bit more me focused and less friendly. So this is an AoE increase, anybody in proximity, so that's why the range is up so high, because I got 26 points of range on here. As you get hit, when you take... Let me just read it. When shields are hit, Chroma and nearby allies' armor grows stronger. When health gets hit, weapon damage increases. So, I've got this set up to 903% armor increase with a 709% weapon damage increase. The trick with it is to get hit early when you'll still survive, because if you lose this, it resets. Nothing is more annoying than being 30-40 waves into something and realizing you got drained, interrupted, or forgot to hit the button because you were busy, and now you've got to try to level these suckers back up. So you need to actually get through your shields into your health. Luckily, the percentages scale up pretty quick with the high enough strength, but you want to make sure you don't get one shot with that. So he's set up for duration, strength, and range on this build. If I switch over here, this is the I don't want to support my team. I'm in it to level myself and do my own thing. So 273% duration. The exchange is 100 points worth of range. So the increase is still the same, but my duration's 15 seconds longer. My radius is only 7.2 though, so that's kind of the trade-off there. And I still have a mod slot because I haven't put as many formas on him as I need to. So, obviously, I've mentioned I've played Overon. I've played most of the frames at one point in time. I've been around for a while here. I've got like 2,200 hours or something into Warframe, and most of it's not recent. So I used to main Trinity, and I've played some others, and obviously I have other ones that I'm not talking about. And then they came out with Harrow. And Harrow is astounding because it's a support, but it's a support based off him doing damage, which is even better. So, Condemn, you chain enemies. Each enemy you hit adds a chunk to your shields. I'm gonna go back really quick here. Harrow's passive. He starts at max energy and his overshield capacity is doubled, which is phenomenal. The reason is he uses his shields to fuel one of his abilities. So, going in here, this is my support page. So, 207% duration, lower on efficiency, it doesn't matter, he makes energy faster than Trinity does. Range is acceptable, and strength is acceptable. So, it's a 12.5 second chain with 20 points of range, and each enemy I hit with it gives me a 300 point boost to my shields. I've got 1,500 points in my shields. I cap out at 3k. So, with that, my Tribunal mod, I will cover in just a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Penance. Sacrifice shields to boost reload speed and fire rate while converting damage inflicted on enemies into health for hero and nearby allies. Initial heal is 99.5%. Basically, you tap this sucker and your whole team goes back to full health. Duration is scaling per 100 points of shields. It gives you an additional 3 seconds. 10% lifesteal on hit. The base duration is 8 seconds. So at 3000, that's another 30 seconds. I want to say this is up around 45, 50 seconds. The math isn't adding up for that right now, though, because that's saying 3 points per 100 shields, 3k in shields. That's 30 stacks. No, yeah, sorry, 30 stacks. That makes more sense. So I think I'm at 98 seconds. Fire rate speed increase at 69%, reload speed at 139%. This is phenomenal because it's an AoE boost to your entire team, and as it shows you on the actual display here, it actually does have a counter that ticks up as to what people are healing for, which is kind of fun just to watch insane numbers go down the side of your screen. I'm going to call it Thurble. I'm not sure on the pronunciation. Nonetheless, channel hero's energy to generate a buff. Once finished, kill enemies to bestow nearby allies with bursts of energy. The more energy channeled, the greater the reward for each kill. Headshots produce triple energy. Oh, quad energy. It got changed at one point. Energy conversion, 24%. Drain, 31. I want to say this is putting out about 45 points of energy for me per kill at a 72% duration. It's right about 200 points a headshot. So then you go over here, and the Tribunal, anytime you've got people chained, other players will trigger 100% of the effects on your Penance and Thurble. So both your second ability for your lifesteal and everything else, and your energy restores. So literally all you have to do is set these, walk through a hallway, spam out this, and every single person is proccing 50 energy a kill with massive fire speed and reload increases. And then because this frame wasn't just strong enough to start with, you've got your fourth, which makes everybody invincible for 12.5 seconds. Lasts a 25-second buff after that. And then every 100 points of damage you absorb is an additional 3% crit chance bonus. I want to say it caps out at like 150%, or might be 50%. It's been a minute since I've done it. Nonetheless, this is extremely useful because you literally, like, people that are happy with their lasers, you can proc this and go stand in front of the lasers and just give everybody a boost. This support is without a doubt my personal favorite because my primary weapon happens to be a flamethrower that clears large amounts of enemies at one time. So I can literally just spam this stuff all day. Now, if I don't want to support the team, then I've got higher strength, less durations, and stuff that's more focused on me doing the damage and less on supporting my team, so it doesn't have that augment mod. So those are a couple of just fun frames. Like I say, there's Hydroid's got loot options. Loki's your best one in the game for stealth. Ivara's got stealth, but Loki's is still better. So Loki turns invisible, 36 seconds. I've got him spec solely for duration because all I do is use him for running spy missions and stuff like that. So he's not my primary character, let's put it that way. I use him for spy missions and sneaky things. There's others that I have that I've leveled. Volt's a solid DPS, Mag's a solid DPS, Anaros is a little strange, Ember used to be awesome, I don't like her remake as much. Limbo, I don't feel like going into. Basically, travels between dimensions, so she's useful because she can do the stealth missions without tripping the lasers and stuff. But I don't recommend her for people that aren't familiar with her, just because she sets up voids that you've got to get in and out of, and if you're not used to her, it's really frustrating to be playing with one. Weapons are probably one of my favorite things in this game, just because they're so bizarre. So, my Fulman, for instance. This is a lightning rifle, albeit it converts to a shotgun that does more damage. So base is a 60 round clip. It's got an internal capacitor that recharges after a few seconds. If memory serves, the reload speed mods have no impact whatsoever on that, so don't bother trying. If you switch it to the shotgun mode, it fires 10 shots at once, so you get 6 shots before you're out and recharging. This thing is set up to run with my chroma. I set it up because I wanted to do insane amounts of damage, and I think, if memory serves, this on my full stack chroma will do 1.2 million damage in my 6 shots on my shotgun, or something absolutely ridiculous like that. So my base on here on a 60 round is 13,500 points damage per shot. Nope. Sorry, I'm in the wrong one. 13.5 per 10 shots. Otherwise, you go down here, and it's 900 points of damage per shot. So the shotgun does do a sizable chunk more, but it costs 10 times as much. So this one's set up with heavy caliber. I'm not worried about the 55% accuracy reduction, particularly if you're using it as a shotgun. Multi-shot mods are probably one of my favorite thing in this game, for no other reason than because, well, you get free shots. So I've got 2.5 points worth of multi-shot, so every shot I fire fires 2 or 3 shots per one at no additional cost to the mag. Boosted crit damage, boosted electrical damage, boosted damage, back to more multi-shot. So I got 90% here and 60% here, so there's 150 on top of your base is just 1. So I should be firing essentially 2.5 shots per. Crit delay. I enjoy this mod way too much. Plus 200% crit chance, negative 20% fire rate. Well, the lower my fire rate is on this gun, the longer it takes for it to recharge. So it's not really a big deal. It just means I'm out of ammo less time. And then high voltage is another 60% electrical. That's just a fun gun. Particularly if you're doing nightmare missions or stuff where you don't have, or you're worried about ammo constraints. You can use that for the index and some other things, so you don't have to worry about resupplying. It's a pretty entertaining weapon. We have the Ignis. The Ignis is personally my favorite weapon in the game, for no other reason than because it's a giant flamethrower and it's broken. Going over here, convert secondary ammo pickups to 50% of the primary ammo pickup. So this keeps me from running out of ammo. Once again, multi-shot. A lot of these are the same. 165% damage boost, extra 60% heat damage. It's a flamethrower. That also sets my status chance. My status is at 95%. 90% heat. Some of the time, the 90% heat's like Serration's 165% damage. These all stack on top of each other, so I've got 150% heat damage and then another 165% on top of that, plus the fact that I'm firing multiple shots per. Here's another 60% in heat. There's a 90% status chance. That just makes sure they're lit on fire and taking burn damage. And then this is mostly on here for the status chance and less for the crit damage. That's just a fun gun. It's got an absolute ridiculously long range. Like 50 feet long or something stupid. There's a ton of bows in this game. They're a ton of fun. They just have a little bit of an arc, so you have to factor that. The Vectis is my personal favorite early on through even mid to late game sniper rifle. You get it super early on. It's an MR2 gun, and honestly, you'll get that long before you get the mods to do this. So, it starts as a 5-round magazine. You put depleted reload on it, and you get an egg 60% magazine capacity with a 48% reload speed. Cool. Essentially, this takes it to a 1-round magazine. So now it's a bolt action. Congratulations. But you put this little bugger on here, and this is not the primed one. I want to say the primed one is 60%. But this one is 40% damage on the first shot in the magazine. With this one here, every shot is the first shot in the magazine. So now you get basically for free a 48% reload speed and a 40% damage boost. And then crit chance is only at 75 on this. I will say when you start exceeding 100% crit chance, you have the probability of doing double to triple crits. Some of my bows are set up that way. They stack and they scale upwards, and it's a ton of fun. So once again, multi-shot, serration. Those are pretty much my go-to for anything because 165% extra damage per shot. You're firing 3 shots. That adds up quick. 200% crit chance. Extra damage boost. This is a 55% fire rate increase. For no other reason than because I already have a reload increase. We might as well have a fire rate increase. And then another 120% crit damage. So when you do crits, it does a lot more damage. This is a great sniper rifle until way later. To be fair, those are my primary. I can load into the bow here and see what's our crit chance set at. Crit chance is 135%, so I have a 35% chance. Yeah, so values over 100% chance have a chance to become orange crits. And then if you break over 200%, you have red crits. You start hitting red crits, you're basically triple critting. It doesn't matter so much what your base damage was because you're doing it all scales off your multipliers at that point. So even if you have a low base damage, but you've got really good crit multipliers and you've got a triple crit chance, you're going to be doing a boatload of damage. I mean, right now, if I was to get that up over 200%, I'd basically be doing a 15% time increase on 1,500 points a shot, plus the multi-shots, because the multi-shots will individually crit as well. So, probably my biggest troll build is right here. This little goo gun. Everybody hates this goo gun because it's a useless pistol. I've been around a long time. I used to spend way too much time putting formas on things, because when I quit playing the first time around, Mastery rank was capped out at 12. I think it's like 35 or something right now. So, go in here, and go back out, some resets. This is the base of a weapon. It has a 4 per second fire rate, magazine of 20. It's a 2-second reload, 5% crit chance, 1.5 multiplier, nothing really impressive, 75 points of corrosive damage. Whoop-de-doo. The only nice thing about corrosive damage is it does reduce their armor value. This is, it shoots, think plasma balls from Halo. It literally shoots a giant goo ball that sticks to a target, and after a couple seconds it detonates. People hate it. It fires slow. It doesn't do much. You switch pages. You're up over double on your fire rate. We're now at 2.8 points of multi-shot because I like multi-shot. Everything else is pretty much the same until you get down here. I'm doing 3k a ball. So, corrosive here is toxin and electric. So here's toxin mod. Here's another toxin mod. So that's 150 points, 150% worth of toxic mods. Convulsions, 90 points worth of electricity. I have a base 220% damage increase, 72% fire rate, 60% fire rate, along with the 60% multi-shot. Here's another just flat 90% damage, and then my 120 multi-shot for my pistol. This is the one that people call me out on the most without any questions, and I always have to demonstrate because it's just phenomenally entertaining. So, we're going to end on a fun note, and if we can hit the right buttons here, we're going to jump into something really quick. Doesn't matter.
I claim this territory in the name of yours truly.
This is my favorite leveling mission because you gain massive additional affinity per level. So this is where I go to level frames, but this
you must provide cover for a lone Tenno operative. Set off the alarms and keep the infested busy.
And other things, because
the infested are releasing toxic spores into the area. The emergency life support I am delivering is your only chance for survival.
But that's what it does. Yeah, I'm firing 90 balls every and I mean, if you hit one, you'll see it that they for 3k. So you can literally just run around. The thing is, will warn you if you attempt this, not that's KA detonate and So, that is probably my favorite troll gun, just because it's so entertaining to do, and every time I pull it out, some higher master rank than myself is like, why do you have this gun? Just so when you ask that question, I can do this. Yeah, that's kind of my core for weapons. I'm gonna reset a couple of these here. And then I'll briefly touch on it and probably do another video later, but if you are trying to level things, when you kill things or friendlies kill things, it gets split between, all the XP gets split between all the stuff on your loadout. So if you're trying to level a frame, run with a high damage weapon that you can go into a high level zone and survive for a while without having any issues. 50% of the XP that you'd get from killing them all with the gun goes to your frame. Vice versa, if you have a either solid utility frame or a high DPS frame, you can go into higher level missions with low weaponry. And I mean, if I was to go back to the Zabala level with this Ignis, and I would sit there in about 10 minutes, I want to say I'm around level 18. So that's just a helpful little trick.
Operator, the system needs you.
I think that's pretty much it for this for now. I'll probably be doing more videos here in the near future. If there's a specific frame that you saw that you had more questions on, or a weapon that you saw, I realize I kind of blew through them kind of fast, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, I'll let you guys go. You have a good night.